You're sweet like honey, he rasped against her throat, his breathing uneven, every shred of composure completely gone. Naya felt his body pin her deeper into the expensive bedding, felt his pulse racing against her own like it was trying to merge with hers. Min Tae-young, the ghost of Seoul's underworld, the man who could make powerful people vanish with just a word. And there he was, shaking in her embrace like she'd dismantled every defense he'd ever built. She stroked his dark hair, still trying to catch her breath herself. "Is that you saying sorry or giving me a compliment?" He raised his face, and she witnessed something she'd never expected to see. Raw emotion, completely unfiltered. "Both," he whispered. "No one has ever broken me apart like this." 3 months earlier, Naya Carter had never even heard this man's name. 3 months earlier, she was nothing more than a baker fighting to stay afloat in Seoul. 3 months earlier, she took a wrong turn down the wrong street at the wrong moment, and her entire world shifted. But before we dive deeper, if this is your first time here, go on and smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Believe me, you're going to want to catch every twist in this tale. Drop a like if you're already invested, and comment "Heaven Sent" if you're ready for this journey. Now, let's rewind to the beginning. The rain poured relentlessly that evening, transforming Seoul into a haze of glowing signs and slick streets. Naya stumbled through the rear entrance of the cafe, bone-tired from working back-to-back shifts, clutching a bag of supplies the head chef had allowed her to keep. Her feet throbbed, her spine ached, her pride hurt worse than anything. This wasn't what she'd envisioned. The vision was her own bakery, her desserts displayed in pristine cases, her name above the entrance. Instead, she was making someone else's creations, watching her visa expiration approach like an executioner's blade. She cut through the narrow passage because it shaved off time. That was mistake number one. The black vehicle sat at a strange angle, blocking most of the cramped pathway. 2 men in dark clothing flanked a third, shoving him toward the waiting car. The third man had blood running down his face, begging in rapid Korean she couldn't fully comprehend. She stopped cold. One of the men glanced up, their gazes locked. Then a figure emerged in the vehicle's window. Severe features, emotionless eyes, an aura of absolute authority. He stared at her. She stared back. The instant stretched impossibly long, suffocating. Then the man in the vehicle tilted his head just slightly, almost with curiosity, before the door shut and the car drove off. Naya bolted. She ran until her chest burned, until her apartment door slammed shut, until she'd verified the locks multiple times and shoved furniture against the handle just to be safe. Sleep didn't come that night. By dawn, she'd nearly talked herself into believing it was some kind of hallucination. Nearly. She stress-made brownies until her cramped kitchen smelled like chocolate and denial, mixing batter with trembling fingers. The knocking started at 7 in the morning. Naya's pulse flatlined. She thought about the fire escape, but her window had been sealed shut long before she'd moved in. The knocking repeated, courteous but firm. "Who's there?" "Miss Carter." The voice was measured, professional. "We're here to bring you to a meeting." "I don't have any meetings scheduled." "You do now." She considered calling the authorities, but what could she explain? She considered screaming, but who would respond? Eventually, she opened the door because waiting for them to force entry seemed worse. 2 men in suits stood in her corridor. They were polite, they were horrifying, and they didn't offer her options. The structure they brought her to was all chrome and glass and wealth. Min Organization, the sign declared. She was escorted past checkpoints into an elevator requiring a special access card, up to a level that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned. The room was enormous. Wall-to-wall windows gazed down on Seoul like the city was just another possession, another thing to control. Behind a desk worth more than her education debt sat the man from the vehicle, Min Tae-young. He didn't acknowledge her entrance, just continued reviewing some papers like she barely warranted attention. An older woman stood close by, silver hair and sharp awareness, observing Naya with something resembling pity. "You witnessed my identity," Tae-young said eventually, still not looking up. Naya's fingers tightened around the container she'd somehow maintained through this entire abduction. She'd held on to her brownies through everything. Stress reaction, probably. "I don't even know who you are." "Everyone in Seoul knows who I am." Well, I'm not from Seoul. The words emerged sharper than she'd intended. Fear made her bold. I'm from Chicago, and I have zero clue what I saw or who you are or why I'm here. So if you're planning to kill me, could we move this along? I've got dough rising at home. Silence. Tae-young finally raised his eyes. They were dark, impossible to read, but something flickered there. Surprise, perhaps, or intrigue. The older woman leaned closer to him. She's clean, sir. No ties, no connections. A baker on an expired student permit. No danger whatsoever. Hey, Naya objected weakly. Tae-young studied her for an extended moment. His attention dropped to the container in her grip. What's that? Brownies. You brought baked goods to your own abduction? I didn't exactly get a chance to set them down. Another flicker in those eyes. Almost human. Then he reclined in his chair. Assistant Jung retires in 4 weeks. You're going to take her place. Naya blinked. I'm sorry, what? You wanted to remain in Korea. Now you've got a reason. I'm a baker, not an assistant. You were a baker, now you're whatever I require you to be. He finally held her stare completely, and the pressure of it felt crushing. You get to keep your life, Miss Carter. All I'm asking for is your time. And if I say no? Assistant Young made a quiet sound of warning. Tae-young's expression remained unchanged. Then we'll have a very different discussion, one you won't find pleasant. It wasn't actually a choice. Nia understood that, but something inside her refused to collapse entirely. She raised her chin. Fine, but I'm not fetching you coffee. The corner of his mouth twitched, barely. We'll see about that. The first week was brutal. Assistant Young trained her with merciless efficiency, drilling schedules and procedures and the 1,000 tiny ways Tae-young demanded perfection. Coffee at 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., temperature precise, documents arranged by urgency and color-coded, meetings scheduled in 15-minute intervals with 5-minute buffers. He needs precision, Assistant Young explained. Chaos claims his father. He controls everything because he's terrified of what happens when control slips. His father? Assistant Young's face softened with ancient grief. Murdered 8 years ago, young Master Tae-young inherited the organization at 26. He hasn't stopped since. Nia absorbed this information, watching through the glass partitions as Tae-young held meetings with men who looked like they devoured weakness for sustenance. He never elevated his voice. He never needed to. She began noticing details, the way he remembered every person's name, even the cleaning staff, the way he sent flowers to an employee's sick parents without anyone knowing, the way his shoulders tensed when specific men entered his office, like he was preparing for an attack that could come from anywhere. He was a monster. Everyone claimed so, but monsters didn't typically know the janitor's son had just been accepted into medical school. By week 2, Nia had stopped flinching every time he glanced at her. By week 3, she'd started pushing back. You're 3 o'clock rescheduled, she announced, placing his coffee exactly on the designated spot. Rescheduled or was persuaded to reschedule? Does it matter? It matters if I need to send flowers or a warning. Flowers, she said. His mother's having surgery. He seemed genuinely sorry. Tae-young nodded, making a note. Send the standard arrangement. Add something for the mother, something hopeful. You want me to select flowers? You have good instincts. He didn't look up. The brownies you made were excellent. Nia stared at him. You ate them? I had them tested for toxins first, then I ate them. Finally, he glanced up. What? Did you assume I'd waste quality food? She didn't understand why that made her want to laugh. This was absurd. He was absurd. She was absurd for standing here having a normal conversation with a man who'd essentially forced her into employment. I'll handle the flower order, she managed. She was almost at the door when his voice halted her. Miss Carter. She turned. His pen hovered over paper, his focus already shifting, but his words were deliberate. The vanilla in those brownies, where did you get it? A vendor in Itaewon. Older man, sells near the fabric market. He imports from Madagascar. He nodded once. Thank you. It was such an ordinary question, such a human exchange. Nia left more confused than ever. The following day, a professional-grade oven appeared in her apartment. No note, no explanation, just gleaming equipment worth more than 3 months of rent. She knew it came from him. She didn't know what it signified. Week 4 brought the first fracture in his armor. Nia worked late organizing files for the quarterly assessment. The building was deserted except for security, the city sparkling beyond the glass like scattered jewels. She was preparing to leave when she heard coughing from Tae-young's office. He was still there. Naturally, he was still there. The man probably lived at his desk. She pushed the door open without knocking. He looked up sharply, irritation crossing his features, but it dissolved when he saw her. He looked awful, pale, feverish, visibly fighting another cough. "Go home," Nia said. "I have obligations. You have a fever. I can see it from here. Fevers pass. So do stubborn crime lords, usually into early graves." She crossed her arms. "When did you last eat?" He didn't respond. That was response enough. Nia left without another word. She returned 30 minutes later with soup from the all-night place down the block, medication, and the remnants of her patients. She set everything on his desk. "Eat. Take these. Sleep. That's not a suggestion." Taeyang stared at the soup like she'd handed him a live grenade. "What is this?" "It's called someone actually caring. Don't get comfortable with it." She walked out before she could reply, before she could do something foolish like care whether he actually took care of himself. The next morning, the soup container sat empty on his desk. The medication wrapper was crumpled in the waste bin. And there was a second oven in her apartment, this one in rose gold. Nia laughed until tears came. Then she made him a chocolate tart. All right, we're just getting started and things are about to get wild. If you're loving the story, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment if you think she's already catching feelings for him. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Join the family so you never miss a story. Now, let's continue. She brought the tart to his office at 3 p.m. with his coffee. He looked improved, still exhausted, still carrying the weight of an empire on his back. But the fever had passed. "What's this?" He eyed the dessert suspiciously. "Chocolate tart. Consider it a glad you didn't die present." "I wasn't dying." "Your body would disagree. Eat it." He picked up the small fork she'd included, cut through the glossy ganache, and took a measured bite. Nia watched his expression, anticipating the professional assessment, the dismissal. Instead, his face changed. Something moved behind those eyes, something old and painful and almost tender. "My mother used to make something similar," he said quietly. "Before." Nia held her breath. Before what? The wall reconstructed so quickly she almost felt the impact. His expression smoothed into neutrality, and he set the fork down. "You're dismissed, Miss Carter." She wanted to press, wanted to ask about his mother, about the grief she'd glimpsed, but she understood better. Some doors only opened when ready. "The tarts are in the break room," she said instead, "for the team. Don't eat them all yourself." She left. When she returned an hour later to retrieve the plate, every tart had disappeared. The gala was Assistant Young's concept, her final official function before retirement, and she insisted Nia attend to observe how high-level operations worked. The dress arrived at Nia's apartment 3 days early. It was midnight blue, floor length, and fit her curves like it had been designed for her body specifically. The note read only, "Appropriate attire provided." She knew it came from him. She wore it regardless. The venue was breathtaking. Crystal lighting, champagne pyramids, Seoul's elite gathered in glittering clusters. Nia felt displaced despite the dress, hyper-conscious of the looks she attracted. A black woman in a sea of Korean high society. Not invisible, but not quite acknowledged either. Tae-young arrived late, commanding attention effortlessly. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her annual salary, and when his eyes found hers across the space, something hot sparked in her stomach. He approached, expression unreadable. "You came." "I was informed it wasn't optional." "Everything is optional, Miss Carter. Some options just have different consequences." "Is that supposed to reassure me?" His mouth curved slightly. "Does it need to?" Before she could respond, he was pulled away by a cluster of older businessmen demanding his attention. Nia retreated to the room's edge, accepting champagne from a passing server. She didn't notice Choi Min-ho approach until he was blocking her exit. He was handsome in that polished, predatory manner that made her skin crawl. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Min's new assistant," he purred, looking her over like merchandise. I'd heard whispers, but they didn't capture the reality. "Can I help you with something?" "Just curious." He stepped closer, too close. "What does the ghost see in you, besides the obvious, naturally?" Nia stepped back. "I'm his assistant, that's all." Is it? Minho reached out, fingers grazing her arm. Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone's personal project, someone's entertainment. Remove your hand. He laughed. The foreign girl has claws. How delightful. Does Min know you bite? I don't know. The voice came from behind Minho, ice cold and utterly calm. But I'm certain he's about to discover if you don't remove your hand in the next 2 seconds. Minho's face went ashen. He turned to find Tae-young standing there, hands in his pockets, expression blank, but his eyes, God, his eyes were terrifying, like staring into an abyss and watching it stare back. Choi Minho tried to recover, tried to smirk. Just getting acquainted with your staff, no harm intended. 1 second. Minho's hand dropped. He backed away, muttering something about misunderstandings, and vanished into the crowd. Tae-young turned to Nia. The deadly calm remained, but underneath she saw something else, something frantic. Did he hurt you? No. Did he touch you? My arm. Barely. Tae-young's jaw tightened. His eyes tracked Minho across the room with the focus of a predator marking prey. I was handling it, Nia said quietly. I know. He finally looked at her fully, and the frantic thing in his eyes softened slightly. But you don't have to. Not anymore. He offered his arm. She took it, unsure why her heart was hammering so violently. They walked back into the crowd together, his hand hovering near her lower back, not quite touching, the ghost of contact, the promise of it. She didn't let go all evening. The car ride back was silent. Nia stared out the window, watching Seoul blur past, hyper-aware of Tae-young's presence beside her. He hadn't spoken a word since they'd left the gala. His hands were folded in his lap, perfectly still. You're angry, she said finally. No. You're something. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Choi's family has been our rival for 3 generations. He approached you to provoke me. I figured that worked. He turned his head to look at her. I haven't felt genuine rage in years. I've trained it away. Rage makes you careless, makes you vulnerable. But seeing him touch you, he trailed off. Nia waited. I wanted to kill him, Tae-young said quietly. Not as a strategic decision, not as a calculated move. I wanted to watch the life drain from his eyes simply because he touched what's mine. I'm not yours. No. His voice was heavy with something she couldn't identify. You're not. The car stopped outside her building. Neither of them moved. Naya. It was the first time he'd used her first name. It sent electricity down her spine. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Care. He said the word like it was foreign to him. About anything beyond the organization, anyone beyond my responsibility. I've been the ghost for so long, I've forgotten how to be human. She reached out slowly, giving him time to retreat. Her fingers found his hands, cold and still in his lap. He flinched at the contact but didn't pull away. When's the last time someone touched you? She asked softly. Gently, I mean, without wanting something from you. He didn't answer, but the silence said everything. Naya lifted his hand, pressed his palm to her cheek. His fingers trembled against her skin. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered. I don't know if that makes me brave or foolish. Definitely foolish. But his voice cracked on the word, and his thumb moved, stroking her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. She should have exited the car, should have said goodnight and retreated to the safety of her apartment, and her stress baking and her pretense that this was just employment. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle at first, testing. His lips were warm, slightly rough, frozen with surprise. Then something broke in him, and he kissed her back with all the desperation of a drowning man finding air. His hands tangled in her hair. He pulled her closer, closer, like he was trying to eliminate every molecule of space between them. The kiss was messy and starving, and nothing like she expected from a man so controlled. When they finally separated, both gasping, his forehead pressed against hers. Naya. Her name was a prayer on his lips. I don't know how to be gentle. Then let me teach you. The next week was a careful dance. Stolen glances across the office, fingers brushing when she handed him files, his hands lingering on her shoulder when he passed her desk. Each touch was a revelation, a small rebellion against everything he'd taught himself to be. But they were both resisting it, both pretending this was manageable. Assistant Jung noticed. Of course she noticed. Be careful, the older woman warned on her last day, packing the final items from her desk. Young Master Tae-young has never loved anything he wasn't prepared to lose. If you stay, you need to understand that. What do you mean? Assistant Jung smiled sadly. He will try to push you away. He will convince himself that distance is protection, and it will hurt. The question is whether you're strong enough to wait for him to realize he's wrong. Naya didn't know how to respond to that, so she hugged Assistant Jung goodbye and tried not to think about the warning too deeply. 3 days later, the attack happened. Tae-young's vehicle was ambushed returning from a meeting. Naya was in the office when the call came, when Dojin's panicked voice cut through the static saying something about gunfire and explosions. The next hour was the longest of her life. When Tae-young finally walked through the office doors, flanked by guards, she couldn't breathe. His suit was destroyed, splattered with something dark. His face was cut, bleeding slowly from a gash near his temple. "I'm fine," he said to everyone. "It's handled." But his eyes found hers, and she saw the truth. He was shaken. Underneath the control, underneath the mask, the ghost was rattled. She followed him to his private office, closed the door, found him standing at the window, hands braced on the frame, head bowed. "Tae-young, don't." His voice was raw. "Don't come closer." "Why?" "Because if you touch me right now, I'll shatter." She crossed the room anyway, stood behind him, close enough to feel the tension radiating off his body. Then she wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressed her cheek between his shoulder blades and held on. He shattered. The sounds that came out of him wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a groan. It was something more primal. His hands came up to grip her arms where they crossed his chest, holding her in place like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. "You could have died," she whispered. "I didn't." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" She pressed harder against him, frustrated. "Does anyone even care if you die tonight? Would anyone actually mourn you, or would they just fight over the pieces?" He turned in her arms, facing her. His eyes were wet. She'd never seen him cry, hadn't known he could. "Would you?" he asked, voice breaking. "Would you mourn me?" "Yes." No hesitation. "Yes, I would mourn you. I would fall apart. And I hate that. I hate that you've become so important to me when I never meant to care about you at all." He kissed her, not like before. This was gentler, more desperate in a different way, like he was trying to memorize her taste in case he never got another chance. "Come home with me," he breathed against her lips. "Please, I don't want to be alone tonight." She should have said no, should have maintained some boundaries, some pretense of professionalism. "Okay," she said instead. His penthouse was everything she expected. Vast, cold, designed for aesthetics rather than comfort. It looks like a magazine spread, not a home. No photographs, no personal touches, just expensive furniture and empty space. But Tae-young led her past all of it into a kitchen that looked barely used. He started pulling ingredients from the refrigerator with determined focus. "What are you doing?" "Cooking for you." He set down rice, some vegetables, containers of sauce. "You fed me. I want to return the favor." "You cook?" "No." He said it so matter-of-factly that she laughed. "But I watched videos. How difficult can it be?" 45 minutes later, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone, and Tae-young was staring at a pot of something that might have once been jollof rice with genuine confusion. "The video made it look simple," he said plaintively. Nia couldn't stop laughing. This man, this terrifying, powerful man, had tried to cook her comfort food because she'd mentioned missing it once weeks ago. He'd remembered. He tried. "Move over," she managed, still giggling. "Let me show you." She salvaged what she could, teaching him as she worked. He stood behind her, watching over her shoulder, chin nearly resting on her head. His arms came around her waist as she stirred. "I'm sorry it's not perfect," he murmured. "It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be you." He turned her around. His eyes were soft in a way she'd never seen. No one has ever said anything like that to me. Maybe no one's ever seen the real you. Maybe I've never let them. He kissed her again, deeper this time. The pot bubbled, forgotten on the stove. His hand slid down her sides, gripping her hips, pulling her against him. She could feel how much he wanted her, could feel his control fraying at the edges. Taeyoung. She pulled back slightly. We don't have to. I want to. His voice was rough. I want you. But I need you to know that I'm not good at this. At being close to someone, at being vulnerable. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to be willing to try. She took his hand and led him away from the kitchen, led him through his empty, beautiful penthouse to a bedroom that probably cost more than her childhood home. The city glittered below them through the windows, Seoul spread out like a sea of stars. He stood before her, suddenly uncertain, the most powerful man in Seoul's underworld, and he was nervous. Nia reached up and began unbuttoning his ruined shirt. He stood perfectly still, barely breathing, watching her hands like they were performing miracles. The shirt fell away, revealing a body that was all lean muscle and old scars. She traced one that ran along his collarbone, a thick rope of raised tissue. Who did this? My father's enemies. I was 19. They meant to kill me. They failed. She leaned in and kissed the scar. He shuddered, a full-body tremor that made him grip her shoulders for support. You survived, she whispered against his skin. I always survive. Maybe it's time to do more than survive. She pushed him gently toward the bed. He sat, then lay back, looking up at her with an expression of such raw vulnerability that it made her chest ache. She climbed over him, bracing herself on her hands, looking down into his face. Tell me what you need. I don't know. His hands came up to rest on her waist, tentative. I don't know how to need things. I've spent so long being the one everyone else needs that I forgot how to want anything for myself. Then let me show you. What followed was slow, tender, nothing like she expected from a man with his reputation. He touched her like she was precious, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he held too tight. And when they finally came together, he made a sound she'd never forget. A broken gasp, half pleasure, half disbelief. He didn't last long. She felt him tense beneath her, felt his control shatter completely, felt him come undone with her name on his lips. Afterward, he couldn't meet her eyes. She lay against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slowly return to normal. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? He struggled for words. You're like heaven. I came in 2 minutes. I couldn't. You made me. She propped herself up to look at him. He was flushed, embarrassed, so different from the cold man she'd first met. Hey, she waited until he looked at her. That's not something to apologize for. I lost control. Yes, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. His eyes widened. Beautiful? Do you have any idea what it means to me that I could do that to you, that you trust me enough to let go? She cupped his face in her hands. You spend every moment of every day in control. Letting someone break that open isn't weakness, it's trust. He stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression, something new and terrifying and wonderful. I think I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. I think I'm already there. He kissed her again, and this time they took things slower. We're in the final stretch now, and trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a comment telling me whose side you're on in this love story, and smash that like button to show some love. Now, let's see if these two can make it through the storm. The next few weeks were a dream. Nia spent nights at his penthouse teaching him to cook, making him laugh, discovering all the small ways he showed love because he didn't know how to say it. He showed love in security details she never asked for, in the way her apartment suddenly had upgraded locks and a better security system, in the first edition cookbook that appeared on her desk without explanation. But dreams don't last, not in his world. The photographs appeared on his desk on a Tuesday morning, Nia arriving at his penthouse, leaving the next morning, kissing him in his car. Each image was a threat without words. Taeyoung went cold, not angry, worse, controlled. The ghost returned and it was terrifying. This was a mistake, he said, not looking at her. Don't you dare. Don't I dare what? Tell the truth. He finally met his eyes and they were empty. They will use you to destroy me, Nia. Do you understand that? Everything I feel for you is a weapon they can use. So, Your solution is to push me away? My solution is to keep you alive. He pulled an envelope from his drawer, set it on the desk. There's a ticket to Chicago, first class, and enough money to start over. She stared at the envelope, then at him. You think I want your money? I think you deserve a life that doesn't come with a target on your back. And what about what you deserve? Do you even think about that? She steps closer, refusing to let him retreat behind his walls. You deserve to be loved, Taeyang. You deserve someone who sees past the ghost to the man underneath. You deserve to be happy. I don't get to be happy. His voice cracked. I'm the heir to an organization built on blood. My happiness isn't part of the equation. Then change the equation. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. She grabbed his hands, held tight when he tried to pull away. You're so busy being what everyone needs that you've forgotten how to be what you need. And I'm not running. Not from you, not from this. They will come for you. They will hurt you to hurt me. Then protect me by your side, not by sending me away. He broke. The ghost shattered, and the man underneath crumbled into her arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. I don't know how to do this, he confessed into her hair. I don't know how to love someone and keep them safe at the same time. We'll figure it out together. That's what partners do. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes wet. Partners? Did you think this was just casual for me? That I'd let the most dangerous man in Seoul cook me terrible jollof rice and not expect something long-term? He laughed. It was watery and broken and the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. I love you, he said. I don't know what that means or how to do it right, but I love you. I love you too, even when you're being an overprotective idiot. He called a meeting that afternoon. His inner circle gathered in the conference room, confused by the unusual summons. Nia stood beside him, heart pounding. Taeyang didn't waste time on preamble. Nia Carter is no longer just my assistant. She's my partner, my equal. Anyone who threatens her threatens me, and I want to be very clear about what that means. Dojin, his second in command, looked between them. Sir, with respect, this paints a target. The target already exists. Hiding her didn't keep her safe, so instead, I'm making her untouchable. Taeyang's voice was cold, commanding. Every resource we have for protection extends to her. Every alliance we hold is now contingent on her safety. Is that understood? The room was silent. Then slowly, heads nodded. After the meeting, when they were alone, Nia touched his arm. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He turned to face her fully. I've never wanted anything for myself, Nia. Only power, only survival, only the next move in an endless game. He took her hands in his. But I want you. I want mornings where you teach me to bake. I want nights where you fall asleep in my arms. I want a life, not just an existence. And I'm done pretending otherwise. She kissed him, soft and sure. Then let's build that life together. 6 months later, Nia's kitchen was no longer tiny. The penthouse had been transformed. Warm colors replaced the cold minimalism. Photographs covered surfaces. Her cookbook collection sprawled across an entire wall. The industrial kitchen was her domain now, and the smell of fresh bread and butter had seeped into every corner. Taeyang came home late, as always, but the word home meant something different now. He loosened his tie as he walked in, following the scent of something sweet to the kitchen. Nia stood at the counter, piping decorations onto a cake. She was humming something, lost in concentration. She didn't hear him approach until his arms wrapped around her from behind. Rough day? She asked, leaning back into him. Better now. He pressed a kiss to her neck. What are we celebrating? 6 months since you threatened to kill a man for touching my arm. I didn't threaten to kill him. I implied consequences. You told him you'd remove his hand. Semantics. She laughed, turning in his arms to face him. He looked tired but peaceful in a way he never had before. The shadows under his eyes were lighter. The tension in his shoulders had eased. He was still the ghost to the outside world, but here, with her, he was just Taeyang, just hers. I have something for you, he said, suddenly nervous. Another oven? I'm running out of room. Something different. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Nia's heart stopped. Taeyang, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He opened the box, revealing a ring that managed to be both elegant and modest. Understated, chosen for her, not for show. I want to spend the rest of my life learning to love you. Will you let me? She was crying. She hadn't even noticed the tears starting. Yes, yes, you ridiculous, overprotective, Jollof-ruining man. Yes. He kissed her, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around the kitchen they'd made theirs. When he set her down, his eyes were bright with unshed tears of his own. I love you, he said, sliding the ring onto her finger. More than I ever thought I was capable of loving anything. I love you too. She cupped his face in her hands, marveling at how far they'd come. Even when you still can't cook, I'm improving. You burned water last week. I was distracted. She laughed, pulling him in for another kiss. Outside, Seoul glittered in the darkness. The dangerous world still existed. The threats hadn't disappeared. But in this kitchen, wrapped in each other's arms, they'd built something worth protecting. The ghost had found his heaven, and she had found her home. And that, my loves, is the end of Sweeter Than Sin. If this story made you feel something, drop a like right now and subscribe to this channel for more emotional, intense stories like this one. Comment below and tell me your favorite moment. Was it when he tried to cook jollof rice? When he confessed in the car? Or when he claimed her in front of everyone? Share this video with someone who loves a good dark romance, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay blessed.